Welcome back to the News at 7. I'm Steve Price, and there is definitely a lot at stake on the ballot this year. News 8 political analysts Laura Fink and Wendy Patrick join us now live to break it all down. Okay, the polls are going to close in 45 minutes, probably about an hour or so. We're going to get those first numbers. Laura, my first question for you, what do we and what should we not read into those first numbers that we get?
Well, I think everybody needs to look at it as if their name were on the ballot. You have to decide whether you're still in it or whether you've been eliminated, first of all, and then you have to determine what will it take to catch up. What kind of turnout will you need for you to catch up and close that gap? So essentially, you see, have I lost? And you don't know if you've won, but a lot of times you can tell if you aren't going to make it to the next round.
It's kind of like the old baseball analogy. You don't win the World Series in April, but you can lose it in April.
Great analogy.
So talking about the governor's race then, who do you think is going to be the most concerned, Wendy, when these first numbers come out, if they're not doing well? Is it Javier Becerra? Because
Nope.
He's got to get his people to the polls?
I really don't think it's Javier Becerra. I think he's going to maintain the lead. And that's simply for a variety of reasons, not the first of which he's a safe candidate. He's, a candidate that is one of these sort of, I guess, comfort food is what we were saying earlier. You know what you're getting. And you know what you're getting. You only need to do a little bit of research to know exactly what you're getting. I think the people that are really looking at this are the next two vote getters. And I don't think either of them can take what they're going to be seeing right now for granted. Both of them have a long night ahead of them. And obviously it's not even going to be over tonight in California because, of course, we take longer to count our ballots than other places. But both of those are going to be neck and neck going into the counting that's going to be taking place in the next several days. And that's because people held onto their ballots for so long in this particular race, given how close those margins were. And I'll even say, given that different polls predict different results. There's nothing like it. I don't ever remember it being this close in the primary for governor.
And you're talking about Democrats who traditionally in the past have voted by mail, voted early. And so when we see these first numbers come in, Democrat candidates usually are doing really well. And then you see the Republicans kind of catch up as the election day information. But we're thinking today, we don't really know what we're getting or how to interpret it when we see those first numbers because it has been such a bizarre election this time.
Well, the first numbers are now appearing to be a lot of Republicans. That is so different. Unprecedented means unpredictable. So if we're seeing all those Republican early votes coming in right now, when, as you mentioned, it's used to being Democrats, you definitely cannot take a race like this for granted. And I think that's going to really run the course over all the elections we're watching.
We're seeing video of Steve Hilton right now. Laura, I mean, this is somebody who a lot of people didn't even know who he was, not that long ago. Whereas you have Chad Bianco, a sheriff in Riverside who's been elected several times and a huge President Trump supporter, and yet President Trump backs Steve Hilton. What do you think is behind that, and do you think that is going to be the difference for him?
This is a whiplash primary where you don't know who the candidates are one day and 2 months later they're matriculating into a general election. And Donald Trump, I'm sure, was finding out who these candidates were. He's a known entity in Republican circles, in conservative circles. He's a Fox News analyst. He's been a strategist for the Republicans in the UK. So this isn't someone who's an unknown. He's just unknown to Californians. And so I think that nod from Trump is a nod toward his viability. President Trump likes to win. He looked at the data and he saw that the movement was moving toward Hilton, and he wanted to see him move in the runoff, and he wanted to be the kingmaker who made that happen. And I think President Trump may count on that tonight. He will be disappointed, though, if Tom Steyer sneaks in and the liberal billionaire beats his guy.
Let's talk about Tom Steyer. I mean, here's a guy who has no political experience, but man, he has a lot of money. And people are listening to him. The polls show he's doing pretty well. Wendy, your thoughts?
I don't know that you can buy this election. I think he's going to buy himself a bronze medal. I think he's going to come in third. And I've been asking this question all along. He's never been elected to political office. He spends an enormous amount of money running these races. I think Trump knows that because remember, he's the blue-collar businessman. He went from the boardroom to the situation room. He probably knows guys like Tom Steyer. And the fact that he endorsed Hilton, I think many people might see that as not just a stamp of approval, but as a prediction that he sees Hilton as more electable. He doesn't want his vote to go nowhere. And even though he's not on the ballot, he's done pretty well in his endorsements carrying his candidates across the finish line.
A lot of people may say the same thing about Amar Campa-Najjar, who has run for office several times and hasn't won as well. That 48th congressional district, Do you find it interesting? Are you kind of interested to see if the redistricting is going to make it so that a Democrat has a chance?
You know, I don't want to reveal any political gossip, but I'm hearing through sources of sources that there's a little bit of panic at the disco and the Democratic camps because it's so unpredictable. Their numbers are in the single and low double digits. The turnout is unpredictable. They don't know what's going to happen. I think a lot of times as a candidate, you leave it all on the field, and then election night, you just hope for the best. And neither candidate on the Democratic side can really do that here. There's a lot of heartburn going on in 48th Democratic camps tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's going to be a long night for them. It's probably a long night for us. But one thing I do know for sure is that in about 45 minutes, Stephanie, we are finally going to start to get those first answers, a quick look at where things stand right away. But as we just heard Laura and Wendy say, it may not mean as much as it usually does. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, it's a crazy race for the governor, so we'll wait and see what happens at 8:15. Both Steve and myself will be here on the anchor desk, and we'll be joined again by our political analysts for more data. All right, and a reminder, we will have the latest election results starting, as I mentioned, at 8:15 on our CBS 8 streaming app. We will have reporters with the candidates as the polls close, plus any breaking updates and more political insight. We will also have the latest developments overnight, starting at 5 a.m. with our morning news team.